Today is Thursday, June the 13th. We hope you're having a great day and that you're enjoying your summer. We're working through this theme of can Jesus forgive me? And here's the questions for today. The first one is, what happens to a person physically, emotionally, and or spiritually when they're not forgiven?
That's a lot of questions in one question.
Yep.
They're all different. Well, they're all similar, but they're a little different. Spiritually, ultimately, if we're not forgiven, then we know there's no eternity, no life. It's death, right? John 3:16 and all that. But I think other things happen. We begin to get more anxious, more worried. It says not forgiven, but I mean, not forgiving is kind of similar. And we begin to grow embittered. I know some people, maybe you do too, that are incredibly bitter and lonely, and in the end up being angry at everyone about everything and easily offended because of that. In fact, when I meet someone that is just super easily offended and upset about everything all the time, I usually assume there's some kind of an issue in their life that they've not sought or offered forgiveness for.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think especially as American Christians, we deal more with the physical and emotional side because usually if you're following Jesus in America, we think, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm saved, so I don't think about the spirituality, right? I think we should think about it more than we do, but that tends to be what we do. We just don't think about it because Jesus forgave me. Yay. Instead of forgetting that, like, my lifestyle, the things I do in obedience or disobedience actually affects that still. But physically, emotionally, I agree with you. I think what happens is we cling to those things and we become bitter or hurt. And then because of that, sometimes depending on the situation, you feel like you're walking on eggshells around people, right? Because you weren't forgiven. Like, I don't know how to interact with you anymore because I want to be forgiven by you, but you want nothing to do with me. But how do I be Jesus to you when you want nothing to do with me? And we just kind of feel helpless.
Yeah.
Number 2, have you ever had a time you felt unforgiven either by God or by another person, and what was that like?
Yes, and bad. Again, difficult to answer. And one thing that Keenan and I try on here is we try to not call out people or try to be too detailed because we recognize that we don't always know who's going to be seeing this at some point in the future. And there's that too. But there have been times that I've been through situations where I have not sought the forgiveness from God or from people that I should have. I remember once, when I was working. I had a job when I was younger. I was not a great employee, just not a very good employee, and I ended up quitting just right before I was kind of fired from the job. But I quit. I didn't get fired, and time went by, and I grew up, and I changed, and I matured, and I moved on, and it dawned on me later on that my former employer had not really forgiven me for all the things, and I was frustrated. But I learned as I reflected on it, thought about it, I had never actually asked for forgiveness, and so I had to take a step of being humble to be able to receive what I wanted.
I've definitely felt both in my lifetime. I think when I was younger, especially, I wrestled through more of the can God forgive me, and so. And dealing with people like in my life, I know that this is a question that often gets brought up, especially with younger adults. Like when I work with college students and young adults, like, I did this and I love God, but there's no way he can forgive me. And it's just not true. But it's a lie that Satan's really good at selling. It's a lie that Satan's really good at making us believe, is that our sin cannot do anything. Like God's love cannot supersede our sin. God's love can't overturn our sin, and that's just not true. But we believe it, we cling on to it. But there are people in my life to this day. I mean, I'm a human, and there's times in my life I was a jerk to people, and I've run into people, and I get treated weird, and I don't remember those times until afterwards. I have people in my life, especially in this case, like, just oftentimes, my wife and I grew up together, and so she knows and remembers a lot of these stories. And I'm like, I don't understand why that person did that. She's like, do you remember when you did this and this and this? I was like, crud. like I don't remember it. But she was the one to remind me. I spawned those things in those people, and so we're continually reaping the benefits and the consequences of the relationships we've sown seeds into over the years. And so I think, but also what was it like? It was like not being forgiven is very similar to it that we talked about in the question before, the physical, emotionally. Sometimes I just don't know what to do to people because like now I want to live different. I hope that you see Jesus in me and that you don't remember junior high Keenan, you don't remember high school Keenan because that guy was a jerk. You see a redeemed Keenan. But sometimes I don't get to jump to that because I've burned bridges along the way. And I hope to someday restore those, but at the end of the day, I have to just leave them in God's hands.
Yeah, I think as I talk to people a lot, men especially, I think we react. A consequence of this is that we get really angry at somebody, and probably they didn't deserve it. It's what we did that we're embarrassed about, but we try to hide our embarrassment by being angry because it's easier to be angry than to be humble, and so we do that, and really it just creates a downward spiral where things get worse and worse and worse all the time.
Yeah. Question 3. Who in your circle is the most like Matthew, a person living outside of the faith that you suspect may have interest in the faith?
Again, not saying names and things. I have a good friend. I have a good friend who actually I was able to introduce my good friend to another good friend of mine, and they're becoming friends now just in recent days here. And it's been fun as I've over the past several years cultivated a friendship, and I've seen this person who claims to not be a follower of Jesus and not have faith in Jesus at all begin to instigate spiritual conversations with me, and I think this person's like a Matthew. You kind of sit on the fringe watching, trying to decide, do I really want in or do I not? And I think there's some interest there that I get to cultivate.
Yeah, I have some similar stories. It's no secret that if you're watching this, especially in our church, we've launched a second campus. We launched it in our North Heights neighborhood of Joplin. I live in that neighborhood, and so because of that, there's a lot of my neighbors who are in this situation. They're just like Matthew. And here's the reason why they're like Matthew is I can't tell you how many stories I've had with people who said, man, I really think I would follow Jesus. They have no idea what his people, the church, has done to me. And then I just listened to their story, and it's heartbreaking of what God's people have done. And I think Matthew might have experienced a similar thing growing up Jewish that may have pushed him out towards choosing to say, hey, I'm going to become a tax collector because I'm not wanted by these people. And oops, I thumbs up.
You did.
This was not a good thing. I didn't want that to be a good thing. I'm gonna put my thumbs down here. But I think he felt like an outcast, so he chose to go to the people who would accept him. He chose to go to the people who would pay him, and I don't think he found refuge there either because they were just using him too. And so I think for us, there's a lot of similar people in your life. You may have neighbors that you don't even know, but similarly are like Matthew. Coworkers that are like Matthew that maybe at some point us as God's people we've not shown Jesus well to them, and they're just waiting to see Jesus lived out practically in your life. I don't say this to pat myself on the back, but just again to talk about how long it takes to do this. You've talked about your friend is a long time. I've lived in this neighborhood 5 years, and I finally had conversations with some of my neighbors where they said, hey, I've been watching you the last 5 years, and you're not like other church people. I might consider Jesus. It's taken me half a decade to even just get through the junk that was done to them to even get to that point. And so I think sometimes we want quick fix solutions.
Yeah.
And who knows how many times Jesus saw Matthew, right? Because he's from the area. Matthew was a tax collector in the area. How often was Jesus paying taxes to Matthew for his own tax burden and didn't have the opportunity, or Jesus had the opportunity to sow these seeds into him so that one day he could reap and say, hey, come follow me.
Yeah. And you mentioned half a decade, 5 years of this. And sometimes I've talked to people who told me, like, I've been watching you, and it feels creepy a little bit odd and things, but you have to understand, if you're following Jesus, people are watching you.
Yep.
All the time. Because they're like Matthew, sitting behind a glass wall maybe, and they're just watching you to see how you are, because the way you are determines if they want to be like you or not.
Last one. What drew you to faith? Was it a person, an event, or an experience? I'm gonna be honest, I don't know your answer, but off the top of my head, I know it's people.
It's people. People.
Experiences are fun. Events can be fun, but really at the end of the day, I choose to stake my life in Jesus based off of the people and his people.
Yeah. It was people in my life and not always the ones running the events. I went to a lot of camps, and a lot of things, and programs. And at our church, that's not our product. Our product is people. And the reason is because our experience, mine, has been that people are what draw us to Jesus.
Yep.
And it's people that I see following him. I want to be like that person. I want to be like that person. And so I am motivated to follow like a student.
Yep. It's always people. And so I would encourage you, a fifth question, it's not a question, but really more of an examination. Are you worth following? I don't know the answer to that. I know I have to wrestle through that every day with my own stuff. Like, am I living a life in Jesus that's worth following? That has my neighbors and other people wanting to watch, not in a creepily way, but I think our world, especially our American culture, is longing to see Jesus and God's people. And for so long, we've held on to other things that we felt like were better priorities than Jesus. And there is no better priority than Jesus. People need to see us living out our life, truly devoted to our Father in heaven, truly willing to say, hey, I was wrong, truly willing to live in grace and forgiveness, truly willing to say, hey, I'm letting Jesus change me too. And then they'll be ready to see your Jesus. Because that's all we want to do anyways. Our whole mission, your life's pursuit should always be about helping people connect to Jesus. That's what you were created for. You were created for a connection to Jesus and to help other people connect to him as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. So, looking ahead, we want to make sure to invite you to continue the journey with us.
Yeah.
We are, this Sunday, continuing to follow Jesus, pursue him with our lives. We're talking about what we need from him and how do we get that and what it looks like. It's going to be a great Sunday. I'm excited that one of our elders, a good friend of ours named Ralph Shedd, he's going to be sharing the message Saturday at North Heights and Sunday morning at Carl Junction. And it'll be a fantastic time to gather just to listen for the Holy Spirit to speak and show us what's next for us.
So don't miss out. Use every opportunity you've been given. I know summers can be busy and we can have things on our plate, but you have more chances now. You have 8, 9:30, and 11. You have Saturday night at 6. Join God's people in pursuing him. Church, until we see each other again, you are sent.